Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Freedman, Matt F. the Oracle. Welcome to the Betting Pros podcast brought to you by BetMGM, where you can get a risk-free bet of up to $1,000 when you use the highly original promo code BettingPros with your first deposit. Here with me to talk NFL Week 12 best bets is Chris Meaney of FTN. Chris, happy Black Friday, I guess. It's been a while since we talked last. How's the season going for you?
Yeah, not too bad, Freedman. It's nice to get together and chop it up. It's been a little bit. It's been a minute, I think. We're going to break down a game happening this weekend that you and I broke down last year in the playoffs. And so that's going to be exciting to kind of revisit that matchup. But yeah, the season's been okay. You know, it's some highs and some lows. We're on the positive side over at FTN when it comes to sides and totals. And hopefully we can keep things going here. We're just happy, man, to chop it up with you and break down Week 12. We got the 3 Thanksgiving games finished up yesterday, and no teams on bye, and lots of action on the board.
Yeah, it's the full slate, even though it's bifurcated with Thanksgiving. But yeah, 16 games this week, so a full slate of action for Week 12. So Chris, one game you sort of teased there, Titans Bengals. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. First, though, I have to talk about the Seahawks hosting the Raiders. Okay, by the way, speaking of the Raiders, we're giving away a free signed Josh Jacobs Raiders jersey.
Nice.
Courtesy of our friends from Pristine Auction. If you want a chance to win it, subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now, comment below on the video, and we will announce a winner on the channel in a future episode, so turn on your notifications. All right, the Seahawks hosting the Raiders. This number, let me make sure I'm getting the most current number here. I'm looking at the Betting Pros odds page, and it's still 3.5 across the board, which opened at 3.5. There's no Vegas money coming in. There's nothing. It doesn't seem as if there's anyone interested in betting the Raiders and driving this number towards 3 here. And I think that makes a lot of sense when you just kind of look at the on-field matchup. And by the way, Geno Smith, I mean, the Genaissance, it feels very real. I mean, he's, top 5 in a lot of the numbers that you might look at in terms of quarterback efficiency. And at home with the Seahawks, 5-1 against the spread, going back to last year when he made 3 spot starts for Russell Wilson. But this on-field matchup of the Seahawks pass offense against the Raiders pass defense, I mean, that's just, it doesn't seem fair. Like, I have in my my personal Fantasy Pros unit power rankings, I have Geno Smith as a top 8 quarterback. I have the Raiders as my number 32 secondary. Like, they are just so bad. The matchup of pass offense against pass defense, it could hardly be more skewed. If you look at dropback EPA, the Seahawks are number 7, dropback success rate number 3, pass DVOA number 4. The Raiders are number 31 or 32 defensively in all of those metrics. And then given that you have the Seahawks at home off the bye, and they have a true home field advantage with the 12th man, I see them winning by more than a field goal. So I very much like the Seahawks here in this spot, favored by 3.5. I have this projected for 4.5 or 5 here. Kind of have to wait and see what some of the injury information is and, make some adjustments there. But I think this should be above 4. And I'm looking here at the outline. I know that you have an opinion on this game. What do you see here?
Well, I agree with you right off the hop. I think that Seattle wins this game. One of the most impressive teams, really. Their win total was 5.5. 5.5, their win total. Unbelievable. It's been one of the best stories, I think, so far this season in the NFL. And you mentioned Geno there. He leads the NFL in completion percentage. He's got a healthy 7.8 yards per pass attempt, which is fantastic. And one thing I'll add to the Raiders, a league high 71.5 completion percentage allowed to quarterbacks. I mean, that is an alarming number. And you got a guy in Geno who's been playing really good football. I think apart from the game in Germany against the Bucs, he'd say there's a couple throws he would like to have back in that game, but you got weapons here in DK and Tyler Lockett and, obviously Ken Walker, what he's been able to provide to that offense as well. And it's a defense that's kind of picked it up recently. Like, they started off the season where it's like, okay, they're going to give up a lot of big explosive plays, but Pete Carroll's got them playing pretty good defense. I like the over, though, in this game. I think that Seattle is probably good enough to get 30 points offensively themselves. I mean, I mentioned Geno and how great he has been. and accuracy wise, and the 7.8 yards per attempt is 7th overall for a team, and going up against a team that can't stop anybody through the air, and second down, third down, it doesn't matter. This team cannot get a stop. There's multiple games this season, the Raiders, when they were up in the second half of games and just couldn't stop, and knowing that the team was going to pass against them, they still had no answer for that. I don't believe Josh McDaniels is a good head coach. Pete Carroll is. That's why I definitely lean with Seattle here. But overall, both teams can score. I mean, you have Seattle at 25.7 points per game. It's the 5th highest mark in the NFL. And I know the Raiders recently haven't been that great. I'm going to give a lot of love to Denver's defense, but they have 55 points in 2 games against the Broncos. You can't take out a game that's happened. I'm going to be a little weird here and say that if you take out the 0 against the Saints earlier in the season, when a lot of players were hurt in that game and sick, it was an early game.
Like a flu running through the team.
Oh, yeah. The whole team, they put up a 0. If you do take away that game, they're averaging 25.5 points per game, which is tied for Seattle. So they have done some good things offensively. It's just defensively, they haven't been great. Adams got 3 straight games with 100 yards, 6 100-yard games this season. He's going to go up against rookie Tariq Woolen, who has been really good for Seattle, but that's a mismatch, I think. Devontae Adams got 44 targets in the last 3 games. He's just getting a lot of the looks from Carr. And it's not like, Renfro's not playing, and Waller's not. But these guys haven't really been playing all year. They haven't really been contributing to this Raiders team. So I think Seattle gets to the 30-point mark. And I do believe that the Raiders probably are good for 2 touchdowns. You get 2 good running backs here. Both teams are, in the bottom 15 in terms of allowing rushing yards and rush DVOA defense, according to Football Outsiders. The over is 47.5. I think it gets there, and a large part due to Geno Smith and company. So I think we'll see a lot of scoring, but I don't think you'll have to really sweat it out. You might get a couple late touchdowns from the Raiders, but that's it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have this projected at 48.6. I feel a little bit, I don't want to be overly leveraged on this game, so I haven't bet the side and the total. And so I feel just a little bit better about the Seahawks covering than I do about the total here. But I'm with you. My numbers are pointing in this direction. Man, that Josh McDaniels experiment, I mean, it's probably going to go. It's probably going to go past this year, because of financial issues.
Sure.
But man, it's not deserved. It definitely should be one and done.
Yeah, and you're hearing a lot of players kind of call him out too, right? Freedman after the game, I know Devontae Adams is a star there, but he's like, I don't understand the second half of game plans. He said that a couple times this season. Doesn't understand, why the game plan changed. And I mentioned it earlier, a couple games, I know they were up big on Arizona, and then the second half they hardly scored any points. There's another game too. They carried I think it was against the Jags. They carried a lead into the second half of the game, and then for whatever reason, these players are saying the game plan is changed. And again, like you said and I said here, defensively they're just not a good football team. So maybe he sticks around, but I think he's a better play caller than a head coach. And I know he's got a complex offense, and maybe it takes another year for everybody to get together, but who knows? Maybe Derek Carr is not a part of the squad next year either. So maybe a lot of changes in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, there is the idea that, and you've seen this with Shanahan before when he was, with the Falcons. Matt Ryan wasn't that great in year 1 with the Shanahan scheme. He was the MVP in year 2.
Yeah.
And so there's the possibility that it does take people some time to learn the system and for it to become something that's a little more second nature instead of like having to think about it. But as you mentioned, Derek Carr might not be there. And so like that would defeat the purpose almost of keeping Josh McDaniels. You need offensive continuity if the team's going to improve. So I'm with you there. All right, another game that we're looking at here. Cleveland hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At most books, this number is 3.5. It is 3 at BetMGM minus 115. So you got some value there. And obviously you can use the highly original betting pros promo code with your first deposit up to $1,000 for a risk-free bet. What side are you looking at here?
So I know you're going to give a little bit of love on the show to have BetMGM. So I was like, let's take the 3. Shout out BetMGM, but I'm still comfortable with the 3.5. If you can't get it, maybe you're watching a little bit later on. I think the bye came at a pretty good time for the Bucs. They finished, we were just talking about Seattle, And I thought they looked really good in that game against the Seahawks. Not just Tom Brady. I thought for the first time all year, they were able to have some success running the football. Rashad White, topped 100 yards on the ground. He looked good. I'm still waiting on news on Leonard Fournette. I don't think he is going to suit up this week. And if he does, then it'll be a little bit of a 1-2 punch. But when I was talking about the bye coming at a good time, I mean, Chris Godwin just scored his first touchdown of the season last week, or I guess in Germany for that game against the Seahawks. So another week off to, kind of get his body right. And maybe for Rashad White as the rookie running back to learn the playbook a little bit more and take control of this backfield, because they've got nothing really from Leonard Fournette this season. It was really nice to see White get going. We've seen this over the past couple of years with a lot of rookie running backs towards the end of the season. Cam Akers 2 years ago kind of took off towards the end. Javonte Williams last year took off towards the end. And this is a team that you can run on. Cleveland, 31st in DVOA defense, according to Football Outsiders, 27th against the pass, and dead last against the run. They're allowing 26.9 points per game. It's number 2 in the NFL behind the Detroit Lions. Their rush defense, they've allowed an average of 140.5 rushing yards allowed over their last 4 games. And I know this Bucs offense hasn't been spectacular. I'm just talking about their best game of the season, really on the ground. But their defense has been legit. 18 points allowed. It's the 4th best mark in the league, 8th overall in DVOA, 6th against the pass, 11th against the run. Tom Brady is 7-1 for his career against Cleveland. Even if you don't buy into that, he's 15-5 after a bye week. So I feel like the Bucs are really gonna hit their stride at the right time. They've been a very mediocre football team. I haven't been super impressed with them. Been a lot of injuries on the offensive line, a lot of injuries on their secondary. But if you're giving me, a 3 or a 3.5 for Tom Brady after a bye, with so much on the line for this Bucs squad, I'm going to take Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm with you. I certainly bet this at 3, and I do like it there more than I like it at 3.5. The hook, I have it projected at 3.5, but I will say, I think there's, Chris, I don't know if you make actual projections, or if you create spreads, or how it is that you go about doing it. When I'm doing this, I kind of, at this point in the season, I sort of know some of the limitations of my system, and I know that I'm probably not taking into account enough the fact that this team is probably improving, and that Cleveland is probably getting worse as the season is progressing. This is the last game that they have with Jacoby Brissett before Deshaun Watson comes back. So, they will be having a changing of the guard there, but they're not going to make the playoffs. They're just kind of treading water till the next guy gets in. And it seems like the mental state of that wouldn't be good. But the idea of Brady and this team struggling, but still being number 1 within their own division, and having that clear path to the playoffs, coming off of the bye. So they're going to be examining what it is that they've done well and haven't done well to this point. So even though I have this projected at 3.5, I think that there's room to the upside that favors the Buccaneers here. So I'm with you, especially if you can get it at 3. I think there's value there. And even at 3.5, if I had to take a side, it would not be the Browns. I know that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I just watching that game in Germany, I don't know if I buy too much into narratives and stuff, but it looked like the old Tom. He just was fired up. He called out basically everybody on his squad. He had a lack of urgency and effort. And, after that game, he was tapping everybody. I know he's had some moments where he's tossed a bunch, and he's, again, another year where he takes the clipboard and he tosses it. All that's the Tom moments. And he's got some off-field stuff going on too. But I just felt like watching that game looked like really close to the Bucs team that won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Just kind of everybody, on the same page. The effort was there. And it mostly, Freedman, it was because they were able to run the ball. It was to give them a little bit more of a balanced attack offensively. And like we said earlier, I mean, Cleveland just has not been able to stop anybody on the ground.
Yeah, and on the defensive side, I mean, they had been injured significantly up to that point. But, getting back Carlton Davis, getting back
Absolutely.
Antoine Winfield, and then getting Akeem Nicks back in the middle of that defensive line. Without him, they were not that good against the run. They get him back, and then all of a sudden, they look like the old Bucs defense that can shut down the run. And then that obviously helps them in coverage because they don't have to be, they don't have to have 8 men in the box to try to stop the run. So,
Right. Exactly.
that defense is starting to come on too. So it looks like everything at the right time of the season is starting to line up for the Buccaneers. And I would just say, kind of like anecdotally, I think you see that in different power ratings, like respected power ratings, where they have been slower than I think most people would expect to move off of the Buccaneers.
Right.
In most respected power ratings, the Buccaneers are still a top 10 team in the league. And, I think pretty cleanly, the Browns at this point are not anywhere close to that. Like they are a bottom 10 team in the league right now. And even at home, I don't think the Browns should be getting the respect of a 3-point differential there. So very much on the Buccaneers with you. All right, a game that is looking back to last year, Titans against the Bengals, and you and I are both on the same side of this. And I cannot believe that this number has actually gotten to 3 at some sports books. But looking here at the Betting Pros odds page, and you have the Titans hosting the Bengals, and this number is 3 at PointsBet. Let me see if it's 3 anywhere else. It was 3 at Caesars earlier. It's dropped back down to 2. So 2.5 at most books, but a 3 out there at PointsBet favoring Cincinnati. And on the one hand, like I kind of get it. Cincinnati is, they're coming on. Their offense has looked really good without Jamar Chase for the past month. And there's the possibility that Chase does play in this game. And if he does, then I understand the move to 3. And if he's there, maybe this number gets past 3, which would make me at that point maybe even hungrier to be betting on the Titans. But I'm on the Titans in this spot, and there is something that feels a little bit dirty about it because I think like when you look at some of the basic numbers, the bigger picture numbers, the Titans don't look great. There's nothing that you can really point to say like, oh, they do this one particular thing that matters really well. Like defensively, they are really good against the run. But come on, like that doesn't really matter all that much. Like if your secondary is getting torn up, so
Right.
like I don't care all that much if a team is strong against the run. There's not like any one thing that you can point to say, oh, the Titans do this really well, and this is why they're able to beat or compete with all of these good teams. But at the end, like they are always there against the Chiefs, against whoever. They are always there competing. And I mean, Mike Vrabel as an underdog, like that is the guy you want to back. That is the spot in which you want to be on Vrabel. 22-12 against the spread as an underdog, 9-4 against the spread as a home underdog. And I'm looking at these numbers, and I think that the Titans have the peripheral edge. So I have the Bengals rated 2 points higher than the Titans here before adjusting for week 12 injuries. But the Titans have a few factors in their favor. So they have 3 extra days of rest after playing last week on Thursday Night Football. And Vrabel is 9-0 against the spread with at least 10 days of rest between games.
Wow.
Like that's kind of unreal. So, the Monday night or, like counting Thursday night to Sunday, or, when he has the full on bye, 9-0 against the spread with extra rest. And additionally, I said strong as underdogs. We know that. And then finally, the Titans have an unreal home field advantage over the past year. If you look at NFL ELO, an advantage of 7 points. Like now that is something that has to regress, but at the same time, like I'm not going to assign them like a minimal home field advantage. Like there is a real home field advantage there that the Titans have. Like Nissan Stadium was just not an easy place for visitors to play since the stretch run for the Titans last year. So I don't think that should be ignored. So you put all that together, and I have this game as like pretty close to a pick 'em. I think it's a pretty even matchup here. So if you let me take the Titans at home as 2.5 3-point underdogs, I will be doing it. And my one fear is that I'm getting in on this bet too early.
Right.
Like I bet it at 2.5 when that first 2.5 popped up out there, because I was like, oh, fantastic, this rogue 2.5. There's no way this is getting to 3. It's gotten to 3 at a book. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the market continues to move in that direction, and I'm going to hate myself that I wasn't patient and I didn't get it when it got to 3 or 3.5. Like that's a possibility, but I am very much on the Titans on this. And Meaney, I think you like the money line here.
I do. Yeah. I gave it on Mean Streets at plus 130. I'm kind of with you. I think I said the exact same thing you did on Mean Streets this morning, was that this could change. You could maybe get plus 135, plus 140, plus 137, or you can get 3.5. I see Bet Rivers is hanging at plus 3, Unibet plus 3 as well. I mean, I don't have too much more to add than what you said. I mean, this Titans team is, I think it's Vrabel, man. This guy's a really good coach. He gets his team playing defensively. They're strong. You mentioned against the run, even against the pass. I mean, they're 6th against the pass. They've kind of held Mahomes in check a couple times over the past couple of seasons. They've beaten the Bills, over the past couple of seasons as well. This is a really good, sound defensive squad, and Ryan Tannehill's coming off his best game of the season, at Lambeau, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns. Treylon Burks, being in the lineup does help this team offensively if they need to throw the football. When these two teams played last year, this is what I was referencing. You and I broke this down, and I believe we both liked the Titans at the time. We certainly liked the defense to get pressure on Joe Burrow, who's sacked 9 times in that AFC Championship
They
game.
did get pressure.
They did. Oh, yeah. They got pressure. 9 sacks. 32 times Burrow has been sacked this season. That was number 2 in the NFL heading into this week. Your Cowboys and Parsons got after Daniel Jones. So Jones has, I think, been sacked one more time than Joe Burrow this year. The offensive line was supposed to be improved in Cincinnati this year. I know there's been some injuries, but it doesn't look all that better. No Joe Mixon. Even if Chase does play, I mean, he could be limited in this game potentially. And in that game, Freedman, Derrick Henry wasn't healthy. You got a fully healthy Derrick Henry in this contest. So, yeah, I like the Titans. I like them to win this game. Obviously, the safer pick would be to take the 3 if you can, or if you want to risk it and wait it out. But I really like what I've seen from this Tennessee squad. And every time I seem to doubt them personally, with the large spread against the Chiefs and holding Mahomes to basically to nothing until that fourth quarter. I think he threw the ball like 62, 63 times in that game to get them back into that contest. So yeah, this is a pretty strong team, and they're a really strong team at home, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, Vrabel, a couple of things. Vrabel is a guy who has openly said that he would endure castration if it meant winning a Super Bowl as a head coach.
I love that.
That's commitment. That's
hardcore.
That's hardcore. Elon Musk would hire that guy to work at Twitter. That's the kind of hardcore that he wants. So that's one thing. That's just like the type of commitment Vrabel has. And then the second thing here, I do build into my projections some sort of injury prognostications based on guys who missed the previous game here. And so up to this point, the Titans have been really injured this year, especially like last week on Thursday Night Football. Oh, yeah. They were missing, I believe, Bud Dupree. They were missing DeMarco Autry, missing, I think, like 3 starting guys in their secondary. But I'm, looking now at the injury reports, a lot of those guys are coming back. So especially like, Ben Jones, who was out with a concussion, he's practiced in limited usage here. I think there's a chance that he comes back. Bud Dupree practiced fully Wednesday and Thursday. So they are getting healthy. And so I just know that I'm going to end up changing my projections, and that will benefit the Titans even more here. So that is something to pay attention to, the injury reports here, which look very positive. And then on the flip side for the Bengals, Joe Mixon almost certainly out, hasn't practiced at all this week with a concussion, and Jamar Chase might return, but far from certain. So I think the injuries, I think that is something that is skewing in the direction of the Titans here. So yeah, man. All right, another game here. This one is disgusting. Broncos at the Panthers. These are like two teams that I don't really even want to think about at this point. But I gotta say, the under here, which I think at one point reached like 35, maybe even like 34.5, but the under here, it is hilariously low. I believe it is currently 36. But what are you looking at here with this
But
game?
what's first? I want to ask you, what's the lowest total you've ever taken an under? Because I don't know if I've gone much lower than a 36.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe I've seen in the
I know I was
NFL
gonna
a
say,
total lower than 36. Other than this total when it was like at
yeah,
35.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I'll say the lowest total I took was this at 37 in the look ahead market because this game is disgusting. And like you just look at these two teams, and the question is like, who's going to score? Like
Right.
who is actually going to score points? And I mean, I'm sure that's like the question that you ask yourself when you're looking at this, like, which of these teams is actually going to put up points? You like the
I
under
know.
here. Talk to me
I
about it.
do. I do. Yeah. And I got on the 37 as well. And I honestly, I felt a little gross. I was like, what do I come in here as a third pick that I really like? Oh, I don't want to come in with Miami to win by 2 scores against the Texans, even though I do believe it's going to happen. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
36. Man, I come in. This is such a low number. But honestly, I feel like it's a 12-9 game. I just don't feel like any team is going to score. There's the threat here of course, a defensive score. Let's give a little bit of love to the Broncos defensively. I mean,
Oh
17.1
yeah.
points allowed per game. It's the second best mark in the league. 186 passing yards allowed per game. It's the third fewest in the NFL. A 61.6 completion percentage against. It's a top 8 mark, and 5.2 yards per pass attempt. It's the second best mark in the league. I'm sure you've heard it. I'm sure you've talked about it. I've seen it all over Twitter. If the Broncos have scored exactly 18 points in every single game, they'd be 8-2. If they've scored 18 points in every game in regulation, they'd be 9-1. Think about that for a
Yeah.
second. 9-1. Like last week, if they had 18 in regulation against the Raiders, they would have won that game. This is a team offensively that can't do a damn thing. I'm shocked. Like at this point, I'm not. But the first few weeks, I was like, "Wow, is this Russ? Is this Hackett? It's both. It's unbelievable offensively. It's completely the opposite, right? In this team,
Yeah.
it's 14.7 points per game. It's dead last.
Yeah.
58.5 completion percentage as a squad. I think there was one game Russ didn't play. It's the third worst mark in the NFL. Latavius Murray's going to have the backfield to himself. Great. He's averaging 3.3 yards per carry. And
Yeah.
yards after contact is one of the worst marks in the NFL. Offensively, they just can't do anything. Now they're going to go up against a Carolina team offensively can't do anything themselves either. 18.8 points per game. It's 25th. 6.6 yards per pass attempt. It's 27th. Sam Darnold's going to make the start here. He hasn't started in a long, long time.
I
As a
know.
team, 58.4 completion percentage, 31. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's just too easy. At 36 points is not a lot of points. A defensive score, going to be sweating it out. But both
Yeah.
these teams, I feel like, are just going to run. I don't think either team's going to have success running. And Sam Darnold, I have no trust, no faith in. And on the other side, I'm not seeing anything that I've liked from Russell Wilson. So this is going to be an ugly game. You may
Yeah.
only want to watch it if you get involved from like a prop or a betting standpoint, but give me the under 36. And I can't believe it's the lowest total I think I've ever seen as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I have it projected for 34.4. I still
you're
I still
probably being
think
a little
there's
bit
value
generous.
here. There's value here to the under. Right. And it's like, yeah, I mean, the reality is like this, as you say, like a 12-9 game. It's like that feels totally within the range of outcomes. Even 34.4 would be monstrously high.
Yeah,
But man, this number is just is so low. And so, yeah, you can see how it doesn't take much if something aberrant happens, like Russell
yeah.
Wilson
And we're in
leading a
trouble.
touchdown drive, you know,
We'd be in trouble.
this number. Yeah. But, I mean, I'm with you totally. The Broncos are like, if you had to construct an under team, you could not construct one any better than the Broncos, who have the worst offense in the league and maybe the best defense.
Right.
Like,
It's
yeah,
crazy,
they're
man.
they're 9-1 to the under here. And it's, given how incompetent they are on offense, it's kind of amazing that they're not 10-0 to the under.
Right.
Like the market, I would say, still has not caught up. And by the way, I mean, we talked about that Seahawks game earlier. How good is Pete Carroll feeling about himself this year? I mean, like
Fantastic.
he won. He won.
Oh
Like
yeah,
we've
he won.
yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
that first game, I thought that was like the Seahawks Super Bowl win.
Yes.
For Russ to come in and the way the NFL had that schedule, and Russ is coming in and everybody's talking about the Broncos as a legitimate Super Bowl contenders, and they go into Seattle and Seattle wins that game. And of course, everything was made of kicking the long field goal, and you the capital for Russ, and then you locked him up, extended him significantly without even seeing a snap from this guy. And now they have to be like, oh my goodness, what did we do? On the other side, Seattle is fighting for a playoff spot, maybe going to make the playoffs. Geno looks better than Russ.
Yeah.
And they're getting more from DK and Lockett this year than they got from Russ last season, with that trio. Pete Carroll won. He's a great coach too. And they're going to have a top 5 pick, most likely, from that trade. It's amazing. Wild, man. It's a cool story on the Seattle side of things.
Yeah. And part of the Geno story is, he's at this point, the front runner for comeback player of the year. I think part of it is because Russ has looked so bad in Denver that helps boost him a little bit by comparison. Yeah. So all right. I'm with you there. I'm on the under here of 37 is where I bet it. I still think there's value at 36, but I did grab it at 37 in the look ahead market, and got to do the plug. I logged it in the Betting Pros app where you can sync up with sportsbooks, get free betting advice and picks. You can track different experts, track line movement, track your own bets, and you can get sports betting alerts. And we monitor all the major sportsbooks so you can see which book is offering the best line on a bet at any given moment. So download the app today in the Apple or Google Play Store. Okay, one more game that I'm looking at here, and it's kind of disgusting. But the Falcons at the Commanders, and this line, hashtag not sharp. I bet this, I believe, at 3.5, and it's moved against me, and it's now 4.5. But I have this projected at 2.5, and really, I don't see much of a difference between these two teams. Marcus Mariota 6-2 against the spread as an underdog with the Falcons. And, they do find themselves in this spot. Many power ratings have these two teams as close to even. For example, the Football Power Index, Commanders, 1.3 points worse than an average team on neutral. The Falcons, 1.6, minus 1.6. The Commanders, minus 1.78. Falcons, minus 1.98. If you're looking at Massey Peabody rankings. So separated by just 0.2 of a point. And then NFELO power ratings, Commanders minus 1.8, Falcons minus 1.9. In my personal ratings, which take into account, a number of things, but don't factor yet week 12 specific injuries. I have the Commanders at -2, the Falcons at -3. There's not much separating these two teams, and they match up pretty evenly. On offense, the Commanders are number 27 in DVOA. On defense, the Falcons are number 28. On defense, the Commanders are number 12 in DVOA. On offense, the Falcons are also number 12. There are slight differences between these teams, but not enough to say, okay, when you take home field advantage into account, this one team should be favored by 4.5. I just don't think that is at all the case. In the running and the passing games, no large edges present themselves for either team. And it's not as if the Commanders have a remarkable home field advantage. So Falcons, 4.5, I will gladly bet them there. I think this number should be under 3. So I will take it. Meaney, I don't know if you have any opinion on this game. And if you have a different opinion, totally fine. I'd love to hear the opposite case too.
No, I couldn't agree more, actually. I mean, I do like the direction of this Washington team where they're going. Last week, I referenced, plus 350 or 360 for them to earn a wild card berth. And I thought, if you did feel strong about Washington, to jump on them now. I expected, your Cowboys to beat the Giants. And then they have 2 games against each other. I think it's coming up, 2 games for, I think for the Giants, they play Washington and then bye, and then they play Washington or vice versa with Washington. But they do have a 2 games against each other over a 3-week stretch. And as I mentioned, I do like this direction of where Washington is going with Taylor Heineke. And, he's definitely the guy for them gives them the best chance to win football games. And he's targeting his guy in Terry McLaurin, who is among the leaders in target percentage and air yards and things like that since Taylor has been, named starter. And I like the fact that they're getting Chase Young, and it's a good run defense. But I agree with a lot of your points. Like, these two teams are really mirror images of each other, and I don't think that one team should have a 3.5, no matter where it is. You mentioned the home field advantage; it's not that significant for Washington. So I view this as a field goal game. Is a lot on the line for both teams. I mean, they're both on the bubble here to make the playoffs. This is a huge. I mean, the loser is probably done, and the winner is more life for them to maybe punch their ticket into the playoffs. But I think that this is going to be a low scoring game, and it's not like, hey, Kyle Pitts is gone, so the offense won't roll. This guy wasn't really being used anyways. So we've seen some good things from Marcus Mariota this year. He's impressed me actually as a quarterback, and it's part of the reason why Arthur Smith hasn't moved on from him. They drafted Desmond Ridder. I thought maybe you'd see something from Ridder this season, that the Falcons would be one of the worst teams in football, but they have hung around with good teams. They have a couple dud losses, but a couple big wins too, on their schedule. So yeah, no, I agree. I couldn't agree more. 4.5. I think that's fantastic. I think it's a field goal game.
Yeah. And to your point, I was also early in the year, I had the Falcons, I believe, rated, if not my worst team, definitely in the bottom 3. I had no respect for the Falcons entering the year. And I mean, they've proven me wrong. They're very much right in the mix there as I don't think they're going to make the wild card. They probably, but they're a feisty team,
right.
they are a team that competes. And Marcus Mariota, say whatever, fine. You don't have a lot of respect for him. Totally fine. It's not like he's a great player, but he's better than Taylor Heineke. Like Mariota is number 15 in composite EPA and completion percentage over expectation. He's number 11 this year in adjusted yards per attempt, number 11 in QBR. You compare that to Heineke, who is a spicy backup quarterback. He's number 23 in composite EPA and completion percentage, number 23 in adjusted yards per attempt, not really even on the board in QBR because he hasn't played enough snaps to get there. He's a competent fill-in, but he's not someone who is actually going to be a long-term starter in the league.
No, you only like him because you only view him as a good quarterback because Carson Wentz has been so bad. You know what I mean? It's just he's just a guy who is better than Wentz and who is filled in as he's been a backup his entire year. It's a nice story. Right? Yeah. I mean, they went into Philadelphia and they beat the Eagles. That wasn't really on Heineke. It was, they ran the ball all over Philly. They had long drives. That's it. It's not like Heineke's blown anybody away. No, I agree with you.
He's not making the back-breaking mistake. So if you give me the better quarterback on two teams that are pretty evenly matched and I get more than a field goal, I'm going to do it even if he's on the road. All right. I think that is all of the games that we have here in the outline. I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to tell everyone about everything you got going on at FTN and where people can find you on social. So, Chris, hit us with the info.
I appreciate you. At Chris Meaney on the Twitter machine, running Mean Streets 5 days a week. It's like a multi-sport show. Obviously, a lot of football, but some NHL and some NBA sprinkled in. We've been talking World Cup these days. So just, a fantasy and a betting show. And Dangle Betzelli hockey show for any hockey fans out there with Eric Young twice a week. We're just on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Mean Streets is at noon Eastern, and Dangle Betzelli is at 10 a.m. Eastern. So yeah, it's all free over at FTN Network, our YouTube page, and just grinding away like you, dude. We're into week 12 of the NFL season. It's busy time to be a sports fan, but it's awesome. I love it. So I appreciate, like I said, chopping it up with you. It's nice to see an old face, and appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, it's always great to catch up with you. I gotta say, out of all of the people in the sports media space, I think you have the best combination of breadth and depth in terms of the sports that you cover. The fact that it's hard enough, I think, to get your mind around the NFL. But, you've got hockey. You are, I think, the best hockey bettor, if not the best, one of the best hockey bettors that I know. And then, baseball, strong in baseball, strong in basketball. It's just, you're like a five-star type of bettor.
You're being too kind to me. You're basically telling me I need a life, is what you're saying. It's been a challenging week, to be honest. With the way the NHL schedule is work, they give you 13 games on Monday, 15 on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and the 3 football games. But I'm having fun with it. I do appreciate the kind words. I grew up, I think I could skate before I could walk, so I've been following that sport pretty closely. So that kind of just comes to me. But yeah, sometimes it is a lot to take in, but I'm having fun with it, and I appreciate the words, Freedman.
All right. Awesome stuff. He is Chris Meaney. I'm Matthew Freedman at Matt F. The Oracle. Check out Betting Pros and Fantasy Pros for all of my work, best bets, player props, fantasy favorites, player projections and rankings, and more. If you like the show, please rate and review on your favorite podcast app. That's going to do it for the Week 12 Best Bets edition of the Betting Pros podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck and see you next episode.